welcome back to my channel everyone. I'm Charles from Charles M Photography. Monday morning, peak hour, 9 o'clock, traffic going both ways. You can hear a lot of traffic. But if you followed my channel, you would have noticed that I take quite a lot of photos close to my place. Now, I don't do this just because I don't want to travel. I want to show people that we don't have to travel far from where we live to take great landscape photos or macro photos, whatever type of photography you want. I'm only about 10 minutes drive from my place here, halfway between Kalanga and Kippering. And you can hear a lot of traffic because I'm in the middle of a main road. Now, I've been here something like about 3 or 4 years ago, so I know this spot, but you wouldn't believe the amount of people that drive past here, photographers, that don't even think that this could be a good spot to take photos. So today I want to show you, we're beside a little creek here called Saltwater Creek. I want to show you how to take photos of reflections in the creek. Now I've timed it right. The tide's just starting to go out, so the creek's full. There's hardly a breeze, so we should get some really nice mirrored effects of the mangrove trees reflecting on the water. I'll just pan around and I'll show you where I am. This is where I am. You can see I'm right beside the road here, so this is why I'm getting noise. And this is what we're going to be photographing here. We've got some really nice trees, and look at the reflections in the water here. This should turn out to be a great little photo session. So I'm all set up with my camera here, but before I start taking photos and share how I'm going to take these photos, here is the Google map showing you where I am and the direction that I'm facing. Now it's just after 9 o'clock on an autumn morning. You can see the sun is actually coming from my quarter here, from my right hand side. Like I mentioned, sometimes we might drive past someplace and we don't even give it a second thought that this could be a good spot to take photos. This was me at this spot. This is halfway between my home and where my parents live in a retirement village. About 3.5 years ago, I was driving past and think like, you know, this could be a good place to take a photo. So on the next trip down, I grabbed my camera and tripod and I came and I took some photos from this spot, but not here, actually on the other side, because it was late afternoon, the tide was high, and I had these beautiful reflections. Look at this photo here. Now, this is right beside a main road. You'd never think to actually stop at this little creek and say, well, I'm going to take a photo here. Well, I did, and look at it. You can too. And this is what my channel is all about. My goal is to help you, the up-and-coming photographer, the person who just goes out for a weekend and sometimes struggles with, how do I take this photo? Where can I go to take photos? What are the settings, like base settings, that I could use to take good photos? What is the gear that I need? Can I get away with using a kit lens to take landscape photos? Or can I use a kit lens like the 70-300 to take photos of wildlife? Sure you can. Don't let anybody tell you that a kit lens is rubbish, because most of the people who will tell you this have never actually either used a kit lens or never really tried to understand the limitations of a kit lens, because there are limitations. But when you've worked out the limitations of your kit lens, you will take great photos, not just good photos, great photos. So today I'm here and I've got a plan in mind. If you go out to take photos, you have got to have a plan. Think about what you want, because if you don't know what you want, you'll never get the photo that you want. It really makes sense. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to go here and take a photo. You'll probably come home with a snapshot photo. So you can say, okay, this is what I want. I would like nice reflections of these mangrove trees in the creek here. So check the tides. What are the tide times? This area here is best when it is high or around 1.5 hours either way, so that there's actually quite a lot of water. Because once the tide starts running out, you'll actually see all the rubbish and all that, and there'll be too much water movement to actually get that nice mirror effect. We've got the tides right. Now I'm using my Tokina 11-20 mil at around 12-13 mils. You could take this with your standard 18-55. Once we've taken all the photos, I'll actually show you one at 18. I'm using this because I want a wider scene, and also I want the reflections of the trees in the water and the top of the tree. If I didn't want the whole tree from top to bottom here reflected, I could use my Nikon 18 to 140mm lens. So don't think that just because I'm using the Tachinra 11 to 20, you can't come here with, let's say, an 18 to 55mm lens, which is a kit lens, and take a similar photo. Now I am using a polarizer because I just want to even out, and a polarizer with water is just magic. This is the one filter that I find that you can't add in post-processing. It just isn't the same. I'd say, like, if you're going to look at filters, the first filter you really should look at getting is a polarizer. Now I've also got a ND medium grad 3-stop filter on here. That's just to help me balance out the exposure. Again, you don't need it, but it just helps because I really want this photo to look smackaroos. That's what I've got today. Now, as you can see by the video here, this is my view. Now, I'm recording this on my Samsung S10. You get the idea of the photo that's going to look like. How are we going to take this photo? We're going to shoot in manual ISO, ISO 100. We don't need to go any higher than ISO 100. I've set my white balance to daylight. Why? We're in daylight because I'm shooting in RAW and JPEG. The photos I'm going to show you here are in JPEG, and at the end of the video I'll show you a couple of the best shots of the RAW files edited in Adobe Light. And I'm also using a 2-second timer. I don't like carrying timers. The only time I carry a remote timer with me is at night time, if I'm doing long exposures and all that, longer than 30 seconds, or if I'm doing time lapses. But during the day I find it's just another piece of gear that I need. So I've set the camera to a 2-second timer. I'm on aperture priority, and I've set my depth of field to f8. There's not a lot of depth of field. I've focused on the mangroves, and f8 on a wide angle lens will give me heaps of depth of field. So I'm at f8, I'm leaving the camera control the shutter speed. I'll put it on live view. Where am I going to focus? Well, I'm going to focus on the mangrove trees there. So let's focus on the mangrove trees. That's it. And let's take a photo. Now that's really nice. I'm using my RGB highlights here, and it's telling me I'm slightly overexposed. So sometimes this is a problem if you're shooting in aperture priority or shutter priority, because the camera is trying to average out the light. So it's telling me I'm slightly overexposed. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use exposure compensation here, and I'll dial down 0.7. There's no need for 0.3 because the amount of overexposure here tells me I need to go at least 0.7. I'd rather have a slightly underexposed image than an overexposed image. But there's a caveat here. If you are shooting just in JPEG, then sometimes having a slightly overexposed image isn't going to hurt you because you're actually going to get a lot more brightness in the image. But because I shoot in RAW as well, and I'm going to edit these in RAW, then I'd rather shoot just that little bit underexposed. So now let's take a photo. Wow, smackaroos. This is just beautiful. Now I did say I was using a polarizing filter. Here are 2 photos to show you the difference between using a polarizing filter and not using a polarizing filter. So this first one here is not using the polarizer. This one is using the polarizer. Can you see there's not much difference, but it's in the water. I can see it much better in the water here. But I can see there's still ripples there. I can see it through the camera here. I've still got little ripples. So what are my options? Now I've got an ND filter. If you don't have ND filters, don't stress. For years I never had ND filters when I started out my photography walk, because back then in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were very expensive. So what's your option? Just increase your aperture from f11 to f16 to f22. Yes, people will tell you that, oh, once you go past f11, and I teach people this, once you go past f11, especially on kit lenses, you're going to get chromatic aberrations. You're going to get stuff around the corners. The photo on the outside is going to look a bit soft. But what would you rather? Would you rather walk away from an image like this, or would you rather just take a photo at f22 and be able to share, saying, hey, look, this is what I took. You're sharing it on social media, you know, there's no pixel peeping on Facebook. Just take your photo at f22, and that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to increase it to f22 and we'll take a photo. Great. Now let's quickly go back and take one at f11. Okay, so here's the photo at f11. Now here's the photo at f22. And now what I've done is I've actually cropped in just to the center of the image to show you the difference between f11 and f22. There's a bit of difference, but believe me, you've got to be pixel peeping, or you've really got to be zooming in. And like I stated, you're sharing on social media. I wouldn't even put that you took the photo at f22, just say like, oh, I went here and I took the photo. You tell people that you took this photo at f22, you're going to get people that's going to hound you saying, well, you know, like, you shouldn't be taking f22, you should be taking f11, should have this and this and this filter. Well, when you're starting out, you don't have the luxury of that. I believe photography shouldn't be an expensive hobby. I've only got, I think, 4 filters in my whole kit bag, and there's only 2 or 3 that I use. Actually 5 filters I think that I've got. The others are just speciality filters. Now, do I need to take any more photos? Not really. I'm really happy with what I've got here. But like I said at the start, let's see now what an 18mm image would look like compared to Red 13mm. So we'll zoom into 18mm, refocus, that's it. I'm just going to have to adjust the camera here a little bit. If you can see on the video here, this is what I'm photographing. I'm actually just taking the trees in the front of me here. There's not much view on the side, but we're going to end up with a very nice photo. I'm just going to correct the horizon. Beautiful. Check the focus. Remember, you zoom in or out, you're going to adjust your focus. That's it. I'm in focus. I'll take it off live view, take a photo. Beautiful. Let's check our RGB highlights. The only part that is actually blinking is just the tree branches here, but the rest of the exposure is just beautiful. I'm really happy. So here now are the photos taken in JPEG and in RAW, and I'll quickly share the JPEG photo first, then the RAW file edited in Adobe Lightroom to show you how much detail I can pull out of my photos in RAW in Adobe Lightroom, but also just how good the JPEG photos can also be straight out of the camera. Before I go, I came here to photograph landscapes, but I'll be coming back here to photograph wildlife. Constantly, I've been seeing little kingfishers here. I've actually seen a Brahmi kite fly around in the sky here. There's other birds flying around as well. I never knew there was that much wildlife here. So sometimes, like, you go there for one reason, and then you look around and go like, hey, I can come back here and do other types of photography. So if this video has been of value to you, has helped you in any way, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Stay safe, enjoy your photography, and I'll see you next time.